Hi internet citizens, it's Carl again, and I have here a Aqara A100 Smart Lock A100 Zigbee model. I wanted to do a little video on how this little guy works exactly, because a lot of the information out there today as of late November 2023 is a bit vague and weird and lacking in detail. So let me just give you a tour of the lock physically, and then we can talk about how it actually functions digitally. So this is the striker plate, and it comes with two in the box. One of them is a little taller, has two screws at each end, and doesn't have this, which I quite like because it helps the latch ride on here rather than riding on the wood door frame. However, when you close the door, you'll notice that the door close sensor, which is this little guy here, is lower than that. And also, because the latch striker plate doesn't curve around the edges of the door frame like most door locks, in this particular case with my door frame or door jamb design, you'll see it rides on that. So just be aware of that. So you will get some wear on your door jamb, a little. But let's look at the lock latching assembly itself. You have your upper latch, which is always used, shall we say, and on the outside of the door this is not connected, and what unlocking the door does is engage the latching mechanism. So I'll do that for you now. Oh, fingerprint got read wrong. See, it does that, and it's now disengaged, doesn't work anymore. So the other thing you've got on the latch is, at the end of the day, for a little extra security on the inside, you can lift the handle and it engages these three extra latches. Now that doesn't change anything from the outside or the behavior of it, so anybody who has the ability to get in can get in and it'll disengage all of them. However, there is one more option, which is this night latch, and that is available regardless of whether you use that or not. Pulling the handle will disengage all latches, including the night latch, and that's important. One of the fears or concerns my wife always had with a manual door lock was that you might get locked inside during a fire or something. So our other previous manual door lock had a second position on the key which would deadbolt this latch, and the only way to remove that deadbolt was with a key. So you can imagine, in an emergency situation, ain't no one digging around for keys. In fact, they're going to be panicking. So the fact that no matter what happens, no matter what you've got, if you're inside and you hit this handle, the door unlocks immediately. Handy safety feature. Now this night latch, you might say, what's the point of the night latch if you've got these three buggers here? Well, the answer is, when it's night latched, only administrator accounts, not general user accounts, can open the door. Okay, so I want to demonstrate for you how that night latch works, and I have to actually push in the door close sensor, otherwise this feature doesn't operate. But as you can see, imagine the door is closed, the external person can't get in without putting in their fingerprint or code, and the night latch is active. So I'm going to mask this so you can't see the code, but I'm going to put in the code of a non-admin user. And listen carefully.
Door locked from inside. Please verify the administrator fingerprint or password.
So what it's saying there is, because the night latch is locked, only people with admin privilege can get in. Right, now if I remove that and then put in that same code, it's letting me in because the night latch isn't activated. So the night latch is a neat way of making sure that, say, visitors who you might give the code to can't get in unless you've got the night latch disengaged. Handy. So So let's keep talking about some of the physical features. These are where your batteries go. There are 8 batteries, only 4 are required. These are your primary batteries, these are the backups. These batteries are not in use. If these batteries go flat, then these batteries kick in. So it gives you an extremely long lifetime because these batteries last as long as their storage does, which basically means you probably want to use non-rechargeable alkalines because they have a much longer shelf life. Reset and programming buttons are also located down here for entering setting mode. I believe you can do some programming of the lock without any application at all. However, it is best that you do use the application or the hub, and I'll get into both of those later. I'll put in a time thing in the video info so you can see where that is in case that's what you're looking for. Okay, so let's talk about the backup key. So the backup key you can access by just pushing on this little plastic thing there, and it opens up and comes down like so. The backup key is very long, and I believe it only goes in one way, I can't recall, and you can see it does that. So there is one more scenario we need to discuss, and that is on the outside of the door. This does nothing, of course. Now, if you're someone trying to break in and you happen to do this, or if you're, as you're leaving, you're wishing to double lock the house, if anyone lifts the handle up like this, it engages these extra 3. Benefits of that is if you're leaving the house and wanted to provide extra security, you do that. It makes the door harder to kick open. But also it makes the life of the hacker, or not the hacker would get through this anyway, of the thief, they've made their life harder to get in. So you can actually remove them with the key. Not always. It's easy to get in situations where you have engaged those latches and the key won't be able to unlock it. So there are situations where you can find yourself, if you just have the key and everything else has gone to shit, you are locked out. So that's why you want to really focus on making sure your digital entry methods are always going to work. So what if the batteries are flat? Well, there is, not sure if you can see it, a USB-C port down there. That USB-C port does not connect to the batteries. It is just a USB-C power socket, and it does allow you to power the door so you can actually get in with the digital controls. All right, so I'm going to switch now to making a recording of the application to see how you can program this with and without an Aqara hub. Right, so here we are in the app. Now, note that the app has no hub bound and it says the door is closed but not locked. What's important to point out here is that closed, not locked actually means the door is closed and locked but is not latched. So the double latching. So this is just a translation thing to do with the application, being translated from Chinese into English, for example. So let's show a bit more of the app. We can break back out to the main menu, go back to the lock, and you see we're not connected to Bluetooth, so we connect to Bluetooth, and if it can connect, it will actually give you real-time status of the door, and you will be able to unlock the door here by tapping it, but again, only if you're within Bluetooth range. No, I've just locked the door with the latches, and it says the door is locked, which means the door is latched, double latched. And if you unlock it with the unlatch it, it'll go from being locked to unlocked. And here now the door is actually open. And now I've closed the door. It does immediately say the door is open for too long as soon as it's open, which is weird. Here we go again, just opening the door and then closing the door. Now let's have a look at the logs. Logs are pretty simple. These are local log. There's no cloud log because we don't have the hub. In this particular example or demo. So it's showing you all the activity that the Bluetooth connection has pulled from the door's internal memory. Now let's look at user management. So you can see there's a few hosts and admins added, and a couple of my kids there that have been added, and they are general users. They have fingerprints, and in one case we have a fingerprint and a pin, just in case, because he comes in and out a lot. And you can see here how you can actually manage authenticators. You have fingerprints, which I've registered 3, and I have a password, but a password is literally just a pin. You can add NFC devices, but the number of NFC devices which are supported is low. For example, a YubiKey NFC won't work, a Google device won't work, but Apple phones do. I don't know if that works only if you have HomeKit enabled, but it might be limited to if you have HomeKit registered. I'm not sure. So let's register a fingerprint. It'll ask you to press and let go a number of times, much like it does on a smartphone. You press and release, and move your finger around, to different tip areas of the tip of your finger to make sure it has the ability to register it correctly. And you do want to do that because you can get it wrong when you come to open the door. If you've not registered your fingerprint on multiple angles, you can easily find yourself not being able to register your fingerprint. Now let's look at how to add a time-based authentication for a user. I believe it's called temporary password, even if you do this via not as a one-time but as a permanent. This particular kid has the ability to log in with a PIN only between certain times of the day. It does not appear to be able to have a time-limited access based on fingerprint, not even if you have the hub, which I'm going to show next. And to be clear, the hub is fairly underwhelming. Okay, so we're going to go into the hub settings, and you can see here that it says accessory offline, and this is because you don't have a hub. So basically, a lot of these settings here are specific to whether you have a hub or not, and it's not very, very clear that it's saying, hey, this feature is not available without a hub. So it's a little bit annoying, but these are the place you would configure all the automation and scenes, which are only possible if you have the hub. So what's this thing, you may ask? This is the Aqara M2 hub, disassembled by me. Just got the top cover here. I've pulled it apart because I have soldered wires to do direct serial communication to it, and I'm in the middle of trying to make this get hacked, as it were, into working with Home Assistant without the cloud. There is still no support for it yet, so I'm probably about 6 months early. But what is the hub? It's basically a Bluetooth and Zigbee and Wi-Fi interfaces run by a Realtek microcontroller. But what do you get with the hub? Well, the answer is not a lot, unless you want to have a lot of other Aqara devices and do all the Aqara scenes and automation within the Aqara ecosystem using the hub. I don't want to do that. I want to use Home Assistant. So, unless you have a bunch of Aqara devices, what do you get? You get remote unlock, and you get the ability to remotely add a temporary password, like a one-time password, or one-time PIN, I should say. And you get the ability to remotely add new users with a PIN. If you wanted to add a user's fingerprint, of course, they have to be at the door. But you could get them to do that while you were somewhere else and they were standing in front of the door. But that's what you get. So you actually don't need the hub unless you want to do remote unlock, really. So the door alone, without any further integration and just managing it via Bluetooth using the app on the phone, it's enough for most people.